When you think about the most haunting moments in Game of Thrones, Cersei Lannister's visit to Maggy the Frog has to rank near the top. This scene, which the show gave us in a rare flashback during Season 5, shaped Cersei's entire life and explains almost everything she does throughout the series. But here's what gets really interesting. The show only gave you part of the prophecy. The books contain a whole additional prediction about Cersei's death that HBO completely left out. So today, we're breaking down every single piece of this prophecy, comparing what happened in the books versus the show, and answering the big question: did Maggy the Frog actually predict everything? Before we dive deep into this prophecy though, if you're enjoying this video and want more Game of Thrones secrets and deep dives, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. Trust me, we've got some wild theories coming your way. Alright, let's set the scene. In the books, this happens during the year 276 after the conquest. Cersei is just 10 years old, visiting Lannisport with her father Tywin for a tournament. Young Cersei is already obsessed with the idea that she's going to marry Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. Her father had actually suggested this match to King Aerys, but the Mad King shot it down. Still, Cersei hasn't given up hope. She's confident, ambitious, and convinced she's destined for greatness. During this tournament, Cersei hears stories about a fortune teller living in the area. The locals call her Maggy the Frog, though that's probably a mispronunciation of Maggy, which is what they call blood magic practitioners from Essos. If that word sounds familiar, you might remember Mirri Maz Duur, the woman who used blood magic on Daenerys in Season 1. These Maggy are known for actually having real magical abilities, unlike your typical con artist fortune teller. Cersei decides to visit Maggy's tent with two of her companions, Jane Farman and Melara Hetherspoon. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Jane takes one look at Maggy, gets terrified by her appearance, and runs out of the tent immediately. But Cersei and Melara stay behind. Cersei, being Cersei even at age 10, basically demands that Maggy tell them their futures. Maggy initially tells them to leave. She's sleeping, she doesn't want to be bothered, but Cersei keeps pushing. Finally, Maggy agrees, but there's a price. She pulls out a twisted iron dagger and makes both girls prick their thumbs. Then, and this is genuinely creepy, she sucks their blood with her toothless mouth. Through this blood magic, she tells them they each get 3 questions. But here's the thing about prophecies in George R.R. Martin's world: they're rarely straightforward, and they often come true in ways you don't expect. Let's break down Cersei's 3 questions and Maggy's answers, piece by piece. Cersei's first question is about whether she'll marry the prince. Remember, she's talking about Rhaegar Targaryen. She's a young girl who's been told her entire life that she's special, that she's meant for greatness. Maggy's response is crushing. She tells Cersei, "You will never wed the prince. You will wed the king." Now, young Cersei doesn't understand what this means. She thinks maybe Maggy is saying she won't marry Rhaegar until after King Aerys dies, and then Rhaegar becomes king. But we know better. Maggy is talking about Robert Baratheon. After Robert's rebellion, when Robert takes the Iron Throne, Tywin Lannister convinces him to marry Cersei to secure the Lannister alliance. This marriage is a disaster from the start. Robert never loved Cersei. He was still hung up on Lyanna Stark, and he made that painfully clear throughout their marriage. He cheats on her constantly, he gets drunk, and he even calls her by Lyanna's name during their wedding night. No wonder Cersei becomes the person she becomes. Cersei's second question is asking for clarification. She wants to know if she'll still be queen. Maggy confirms she will be queen, but then drops another bomb. She tells Cersei that she'll be queen until there comes another, younger and more beautiful, to cast you down and take all that you hold dear. This part of the prophecy becomes an obsession for Cersei. Throughout both the books and the show, she sees threats in every young, beautiful woman around her. Is it Sansa Stark? Is it Margaery Tyrell? Is it Daenerys Targaryen? This paranoia drives so many of Cersei's decisions. Her hatred for Margaery, her cruelty toward Sansa, all of it stems from this prophecy. The irony here is incredible, because by trying so hard to prevent the prophecy from coming true, Cersei actually helps make it happen. This is a classic self-fulfilling prophecy situation. In the show, the identity of this younger, more beautiful queen is pretty clearly Daenerys Targaryen. Daenerys literally casts Cersei down by burning King's Landing with dragon fire, which leads to Cersei's death. But in the books, where the story isn't finished yet, it's still up for debate. Many readers think it could be Margaery, who does marry both of Cersei's sons and temporarily takes her place as queen. Others are convinced it's Daenerys because she has that classic Targaryen beauty that's described as almost inhuman. Whoever it is, the prophecy is clear that Cersei won't hold on to power forever. Now we get to Cersei's third question, and this is where things get really dark. She asks if she and the king will have children. Maggy's response is specific and chilling. In the books, she says, the king will have 16 children, and you will have 3. In the show, they changed it to 20 children for the king, probably just to make Robert seem even more promiscuous. But the key detail is the same: Robert will have tons of bastard children scattered all over Westeros, while Cersei will have exactly 3 children. Then Maggy adds the most famous part of the prophecy. Gold shall be their crowns and gold their shrouds. This line has multiple meanings packed into it. On the surface, it's talking about how Cersei's children will become royalty and then die. Joffrey and Tommen both wore golden crowns as kings. But the gold reference goes deeper than that. It's also about their hair. All 3 of Cersei's children, Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, have golden blonde Lannister hair, not the dark Baratheon hair they should have inherited from Robert. This is actually how Ned Stark figures out the truth in Season 1. He looks at the genealogy of House Baratheon and realizes that the dark Baratheon genes always dominate. Every legitimate Baratheon child in history had dark hair. But Cersei's kids are all blonde, which proves they're not Robert's children at all. They're Jaime's. The golden shrouds part is about their deaths. In the books, when Joffrey dies, he's dressed in golden armor for his funeral. It's a literal golden shroud. And the prophecy predicts that all 3 children will die before Cersei does. This has already come true in both the books and the show. Joffrey is poisoned at his own wedding by Olenna Tyrell. Myrcella is poisoned by Ellaria Sand in Dorne with a kiss. And Tommen, after watching his wife Margaery and hundreds of others die when Cersei blows up the September of Baelor, takes off his crown and jumps out of a window to his death. 3 children, 3 golden shrouds. But wait, there's more. In the show, they added this detail about Cersei having a 4th child with Robert, a black-haired boy who died as an infant. She tells Catelyn Stark about this in Season 1, and later she mentions it to Robert himself. This creates a problem with the prophecy, because Maggy said Cersei would have exactly 3 children. So what happened? Most people think this was either a continuity error by the showrunners, or Cersei was lying to Catelyn to appear more sympathetic. In the books, this never happens. Cersei gets pregnant by Robert once in the books, but she has Jaime help her get Moon Tea, which is basically a fantasy abortion potion, because she doesn't want to have Robert's child. There's also the question of Cersei's 4th pregnancy in the show. In Season 7, she tells Jaime she's pregnant again. If the prophecy says she'll only have 3 children, what does this mean? Will she miscarry? Will she die before the baby is born? In the show, she does die while still pregnant, so the prophecy technically remains true. But this pregnancy adds an extra layer of tension to her final season. Now here's where things get really interesting, and this is the part the show completely left out. In the books, after telling Cersei about her 3 children dying, Maggy isn't done. She adds one more terrifying prediction. And when your tears have drowned you, the Valonqar shall wrap his hands about your pale white throat and choke the life from you. Valonqar is High Valyrian 4, little brother. This part of the prophecy doesn't appear in the show at all, and that's a huge change. In the books, this prediction shapes Cersei's entire relationship with Tyrion. She's already blamed him for their mother's death, since Joanna Lannister died giving birth to Tyrion. But the Valonqar prophecy makes her absolutely convinced that Tyrion is going to kill her someday. This fuels her hatred, her paranoia, and her desire to see him executed. Every decision she makes regarding Tyrion is influenced by this prophecy. But here's the twist that book readers have been debating for years. Cersei assumes the Valonqar is Tyrion because he's her younger brother, but she's forgetting something crucial. Jaime is also her younger brother. They're twins, but Cersei was born first, making Jaime technically the younger sibling by a few minutes. And Jaime has a much more complicated relationship with Cersei than Tyrion does. In the books, Jaime starts to see Cersei for who she really is. He begins to question whether he should keep supporting her destructive choices. There's this pivotal moment in the books where Cersei writes to Jaime begging for help, and he burns her letter without responding. That's huge character development for someone who spent his entire life devoted to her. Some readers think the Valonqar could even be one of Cersei's own children. Tommen is the younger brother among her kids. Could he be the one to bring about her downfall? The prophecy says her children will die first, but maybe Tommen's suicide is what emotionally drowned Cersei, fitting the "when your tears have drowned you" part of the prediction. Other theories get creative with the interpretation. Since High Valyrian is apparently a gender-neutral language according to the show's language creator, some people think the Valonqar could be a woman. Arya Stark is a popular candidate for this theory, especially since she has Cersei on her kill list and could theoretically use her faceless men's skills to wear someone else's face and get close to Cersei. Daenerys is another option, though she doesn't really fit the "little brother" description unless you interpret it very loosely. There's even a theory about Sandor Clegane, the Hound, being the Valonqar since he's the younger brother of the Mountain. Or Stannis Baratheon, who was Robert's younger brother. The possibilities are endless when you start playing around with how to interpret "little brother." But the show handled all of this completely differently. By leaving out the Valonqar part of the prophecy, they gave themselves freedom to have Cersei die however they wanted. And what they chose was this: Cersei dies in the destruction of the Red Keep, crushed by falling rubble while Jaime holds her. In their final moments, Jaime has his hand around her neck, which some viewers took as a nod to the Valonqar prophecy even though it was never mentioned in the show. It's like they wanted to acknowledge it without fully committing to it. Whether that works for you as a viewer probably depends on how you feel about the ending in general. Now let's talk about something else that happened after that visit to Maggy's tent, because there's a dark detail that often gets overlooked. Remember Melara, the girl who went with Cersei to see Maggy? She gets to ask 3 questions too. Her first question is about whether she'll marry Jaime Lannister. This immediately pisses off Cersei because, even at age 10, she considers Jaime to be hers and hers alone. The idea that some other girl could want to marry him is unacceptable to young Cersei. Maggy's response to Melara is brutal. She tells her, "Not Jaime, nor any other man. Worms will have your maidenhead. Your death is here tonight, little one." Can you smell her breath? She is very close. That last part is chilling because Maggy is basically saying that death is standing right there in the tent with them, close enough to smell. Soon after this visit to Maggy, Melara drowns in a well. In the books, Cersei remembers hearing Melara screaming and shouting in the well. During Cersei's walk of shame in A Dance with Dragons, she has a hallucination where she sees Melara staring at her accusingly. The books strongly imply that 10-year-old Cersei pushed Melara into that well and left her to drown. The reasons could be multiple. Maybe it was jealousy over Melara wanting to marry Jaime. Maybe it was anger at Melara for convincing her to visit Maggy in the first place. Maybe it was fear that Melara would tell someone about the prophecies they heard. Melara had suggested that if they never spoke about the prophecies, they wouldn't come true. But Cersei might have realized the only way to guarantee Melara's silence was to kill her. So even as a child, Cersei was capable of murder. That's terrifying. And here's the ultimate irony in all of this: by killing Melara, Cersei actually helped fulfill Maggy's prophecy about Melara's death. Just like with her own prophecy, Cersei's attempts to control and prevent predicted events end up making them happen. This is one of the major themes in both the books and the show. Prophecies in this world aren't really about predicting an unchangeable future. They're about how people react to knowledge of what might happen. Cersei's paranoia and her desperate attempts to avoid her fate are exactly what drive her toward it. George R.R. Martin has talked about how prophecy works in his world. He's compared it to a half-trained mule. It might look useful, but the moment you trust it completely, it kicks you in the head. The characters who believe too strongly in prophecies end up destroying themselves. Cersei is the perfect example of this. If she had just lived her life without obsessing over Maggy's words, maybe things would have turned out differently. But instead, she lets this prophecy from when she was 10 years old dictate every major decision she makes as an adult. Think about how the prophecy influenced her actions. She treats Tyrion horribly because she thinks he's the Valonqar who will kill her. She frames Tyrion for Joffrey's murder because of this fear. But by doing that, she sets in motion the chain of events that leads to Oberyn Martell fighting the Mountain, which leads to Oberyn's death, which leads to the Sand Snake seeking revenge, which leads to Myrcella's death. Cersei's actions directly contribute to her daughter's death, fulfilling another part of the prophecy. She's paranoid about younger, more beautiful queens, so she schemes against Margaery Tyrell. She tries to frame Margaery for adultery and treason by empowering the Faith militant. But this backfires spectacularly when the Faith turns on Cersei herself and arrests her for her own crimes. This leads to her walk of shame, one of the most humiliating moments of her life. And then, to escape the Faith's control and free Tommen from Margaery, she blows up the September of Baelor with wildfire, killing hundreds of people including Margaery. But this causes Tommen to commit suicide. In trying to save her son from the prophecy's younger queen, Cersei ends up causing his death, which was also predicted by the prophecy. Do you see the pattern here? Every single thing Cersei does to fight against the prophecy ends up making it come true. This is what makes her story so tragic. She's not just a villain. She's someone who was given terrible knowledge as a child and spent her entire life trying to prove it wrong, only to make it all happen through her own actions. The show emphasized this self-fulfilling nature of the prophecy. We see that shot of Tommen jumping from the window with the smoke from the destroyed September rising in the background. The visual storytelling there is powerful. It's showing us that Cersei's choice to burn the September is what kills her last child, just as Maggy predicted. Even Lena Headey, who played Cersei, talked about how when Tommen dies, there's this twisted sense of relief for Cersei. The terrible thing she's been dreading her whole life has finally happened. The waiting is over. Maggy the Frog herself is a fascinating character, even though we only see her briefly. In the books, she's described as old and frightening, with yellow crusty eyes and greenish skin. She's a Maggy, someone who practices blood magic, which is portrayed as one of the most powerful and darkest forms of magic in this world. The fact that she can predict the future with such accuracy shows that she has real power. This isn't some charlatan making vague predictions that could apply to anyone. She gives specific details that come true exactly as she said. There's something almost malicious in how Maggy delivers the prophecy. She seems to enjoy frightening these young girls. She could have been kind about it or refused to answer at all, but instead she gives them these terrible predictions with what the books describe as malice gleaming in her eyes. Did she know how much damage this prophecy would do to young Cersei's psyche? Did she care? We don't know. She's long dead by the time the main story takes place. But her words echo through Cersei's entire life. In conclusion, did Maggy the Frog predict everything? Pretty much, yeah. Every major event in Cersei's life that Maggy predicted came true in one way or another. She married the king. She became queen. She had 3 children who all died. A younger queen did cast her down and take everything she held dear. The only part we can't fully confirm is the Valonqar, since the show went in a different direction and the books aren't finished yet. But even in the show, you could interpret Cersei's death as a subtle nod to that prophecy. What makes this prophecy so brilliant is how it works on multiple levels. On the surface, it's a plot device that explains Cersei's behavior and foreshadows major events. But on a deeper level, it's a commentary on fate, free will, and how knowledge of the future can be both a gift and a curse. It shows how trying too hard to avoid your destiny can actually push you toward it. It demonstrates how fear and paranoia can become self-fulfilling prophecies. Cersei Lannister's story is ultimately a tragedy. She was a young girl who wanted to be important, who wanted to be loved, who wanted to protect her children. But she was given this terrible knowledge that poisoned everything. She spent her life fighting against the prophecy, and in doing so, she made every single prediction come true. By the end, she loses everything. Her children, her crown, her brother lover, her life. All of it foretold by a witch in a tent when she was just 10 years old. So the next time you rewatch Game of Thrones or reread A Song of Ice and Fire, pay attention to Cersei's actions through the lens of this prophecy. See how it shapes every decision she makes. See how her attempts to avoid her fate only seal it more firmly. That's the genius of George R.R. Martin's writing and the show's adaptation of it. The prophecy isn't just a plot point. It's the key to understanding one of the most complex and fascinating characters in the entire series. Whether you love Cersei or hate her, you have to admit her story is compelling. And so much of that comes down to this one scene in a tent with Maggy the Frog, where a little girl learned too much about her future and spent the rest of her life trying to change it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Cersei's prophecy, let me know in the comments what other Game of Thrones mysteries you want explained. Should we tackle the Azor Ahai prophecy next? The prophecy about the prince that was promised? Or maybe something completely different like the mysteries of the three-eyed raven? Let me know what you want to see. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more Game of Thrones content. Winter came, the show ended, but we're still here analyzing every detail because this story is just that good. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.